Howdy folks, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be checking out Lunar Lander from Numskull and Quarter Arcades. I'd like to note that this one was sent to me for the purposes of review, and this one could be the last one, who knows. Now before you give me a thumbs down and you're like, here's another shill who's going to give a kiss-ass review, you guys should know by now I'm not that guy. Nobody has or ever will have creative control over anything I do except for me. I wanted to do this one a little earlier, but by the time I received mine, it seemed like a lot of folks had gotten theirs, and I didn't want to saturate your feeds with yet another Lunar Lander video. Besides, at the time it was a pre-order, and now they're readily available, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Before we start cracking boxes open, let's talk some history of Lunar Lander and how it came about. If you're not a fan of the history portions of my videos, feel free to skip ahead, but you never know, you might miss a good nugget. On October 4th, 1957, the space race began when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. It was the first artificial satellite. Sputnik didn't last long. It sent radio signals back to Earth for about 3 weeks before the silver zinc batteries that were on board depleted. On April 12th, 1961, Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space before the US could launch its first Project Mercury astronaut. The orbital spaceflight consisted of a single orbit around the Earth, which skimmed the upper atmosphere at 169 kilometers or 105 miles at its lowest point. On May 25, 1961, John F. Kennedy stood before Congress and proposed that the U.S. should commit itself to achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the decade was out. Initially, the proposal didn't have widespread support. An April 1961 Gallup poll indicated that 58% of Americans were opposed to it. On September 12, 1962, President Kennedy visited Rice University and delivered his "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech before a crowd of 40,000 people.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all mankind.
Unfortunately, President Kennedy would never see the moon landing become a reality due to his assassination on November 22, 1963. The Apollo project became a memorial to him. On July 16th, Apollo 11, the fifth manned flight in the United States Apollo program, was the first space flight to land humans on the moon. Neil Armstrong, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins traveled for 3 days until they entered the lunar orbit. On July 20th, 1969, Aldrin and Armstrong climbed into the lunar module, leaving Collins behind in the command module. With Aldrin piloting, the lunar module touched down successfully on the Tranquility Base at 2017 UTC. Armstrong became the first person to step on the surface of the moon about 6 hours later at 2:56 UTC on July 21st while the world watched.
The surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. I'm at the foot of the ladder. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Aldrin joined him 19 minutes afterwards, and together they spent about 2.5 hours exploring the site and planting the American flag. They collected 47.5 pounds of lunar material before re-entering the limb. In total, they were on the moon's surface for 21 hours, 36 minutes before returning to the command module. After Apollo 11, there would be 6 more attempts to land on the moon. Only one would fail. Just after the 10-year anniversary of the first moon landing, Lunar Lander by Atari was released in August 1979. The development of Lunar Lander began with the creation of the vector graphics engine by Atari after the release of Space Wars by Cinematronics in 1978. Engine co-designer Wendy Allen, who was credited as Howard Delman, proposed using the engine to create a Lunar Lander game. The game was co-designed by Wendy Allen and Richard Moore. It was Atari's first vector-based game and the first multiple perspective video game changing views to zoom in as the module approached the moon. Initially, Allen wanted the module to move as realistically as possible, but they determined that the result was almost impossible to play. Alan chose the large handle used to control the thruster. Initially, Atari wanted to use a standard joystick, but he wanted a control with more physicality, including adding a rubber pad at the bottom to give players the impression they could pull harder for a little more thrust. Lunar Lander sold 4,803 units, which was considered a moderate success, but was soon overtaken by Asteroids, which was released in November 1979. Ironically, 300 Asteroid units were shipped in Lunar Lander branded cabinets. Now that we're done with the history here, let's check it out. The first thing that I noticed when it arrived was its size. This one's larger than my elevator action, which I put here for comparison. To be honest, I was concerned as to how it would look side by side with the other quarter scale line. Alright, so let's crack this open. I know I said this before, but the boxes that these cabs are shipped in are solid. This time I elected to flip the box over and open it from the bottom, so this time it would be right side up. As I remove the protective box, you'll notice that there's an extra box on top. It includes a quarter scale frame piece of art and a spotlight, but we'll talk about that in a bit. With it out of the box, let's toss it on the carousel and take a look at it. I really do love the quality of the box. It provides a majority of the information that you want to know about the product, in my opinion. I also think it displays well if you have the room to do that, of course. Okay, let's open it up and check out the cabinet. Right up on top, we have the USB charging cable. The protective foam top took a little bit of effort to pull off, but in all fairness, the tighter it is, the better protected your cabinet will be. The cabinet here was a little too tall to pull out of the box while standing straight up like I did with the Qix. Unfortunately, I had to turn it onto its side here, which doesn't present well. I really did a poor job with this one, folks. Sorry about that. Our cabinet comes in a nice thick plastic bag to protect the machine from any scratches or damage that may occur in transit. It opens pretty easily once you cut the tape. This one's got a lot of weight to it as well. At least this time, I knew how to set it down on the bar. I took a few moments here to kind of go over it a little bit. You know, tapping the buttons, checking out the throttle, that sort of thing. Now let's put them on the carousel here just so we can get a good 360 view of them. So what do you folks think so far? So far, so good in my opinion. They both present very well aesthetically. I was still concerned about the size difference. I didn't know how well it would blend with the other two cabinets sitting on the sill. Let's move on to what else was in the box. We had that USB charging cable, and the bag that includes the warranty card, instructions, and whatnot. Getting everything out of the bag for some reason is always a problem for me. So let's use a little movie magic wipe here to get to the stuff inside. We have that warranty card. We also have that QR code for the Facebook group. The last time I checked this out, I didn't flip it over. I never knew there was anything printed on the backside. We also have that instruction manual with the 6 different languages. So let's take a look at the quarter scale poster and the spotlight that was included. According to the website, the first 400 orders of Lunar Lander and Bad Dudes includes a poster and a spotlight. The box itself is pretty plain, but sturdy. It's recyclable, that's cool. It notes that the spotlight requires 3 LR44 batteries. Pulling it out of the box here, the poster's very nice, but being up front, this really isn't my thing. For those of you that have a diorama, I'm sure this is a pretty cool item for your setup. Since I don't have any LR44 batteries, I guess it's time to head out and hunt for some. Just a side note here, when I opened the box initially, I missed this instruction sheet that covers the particulars for the battery installation and how everything's mounted. So I didn't have this when it came to removing the battery compartment, cover, and all that stuff. So it took a few tries to get these batteries locally. I tried the pharmacies and whatnot, but I ultimately found them at Lowe's. The LR44s are interchangeable with 7 different types of batteries. Those batteries are AG13s, A76s, and the 357s that I have here. My suggestion would be to grab these on Amazon so you could avoid the headache altogether if you're one of those 400. The light pops out of the protective packaging pretty easy. It has this nice little magnetic stand. The push button on the back here is fairly standard, and it has a nice little click to it. To open it up here, we're just going to use a 3mm Phillips head screwdriver. Now the fun part. Getting these damn batteries out of the packaging is a struggle in and of itself. These suckers are like triple packed. The only thing worse are some of those medications that you want to take right away. You know, like NyQuil or Imodium. Those meds you want to take right away, but you need like a buzzsaw and a PhD to open the packaging. That's what it was like opening these little mothers. Now, putting in the batteries isn't all that difficult. However, the writing inside is very small and it's black on black. Needless to say, it was a little difficult to see in there, even with the cheaters on.
Dim your eyes! Too late.
After checking it in the light, I was able to get the proper orientation. The batteries themselves take a little bit of effort to pop in. As you can see here, the light's pretty bright. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't do it any justice. It's kind of overly bright for some reason in these shots, and it's reflecting quite a bit off the poster. This was not actually what I was seeing in person. The light actually shines down like a spotlight really well. They did a great job with this. Now let's dig into the cabinet itself. But first, my favorite part of any new product, removing that protective sticker. I always have this weird internal sigh when I do this. I have no idea why I find this so satisfying. Checking out the front of the cabinet here, we can see that the attention to detail that we've come to expect from quarter arcade cabinets is here. The cabinet itself is 18 inches tall, 6 inches wide, and 7.8 inches deep. It's worth noting that it's an inch taller than the Qix that I reviewed a short time ago. The marquee looks great, and it's really vibrant. Well, as vibrant as you can get from 1970s yellow and orange. We have a single 3-watt speaker, which I did a really terrible job of highlighting here. Sorry about that, folks. The TFT 5-inch 4:3 ratio screen looks a little larger to me than it does on the other cabs. I guess because it's a little bit more recessed, it may be an optical illusion. And it could be because all of the cabinets that I have vertical screens. The screen includes that overlay that gives us that proper aspect ratio plus that vector tube type look. Panning down to the control panel, we can see that the 3M rub-resisting graphics are extremely clear. They also did a great job with these volcano buttons. They're recreated here very well. I found the thruster to be very intricate. The handle is attached via screws versus it just being one molded piece of plastic, which is very impressive. The plastic coin door has 2 buttons for adding your credits, as this is running the original arcade ROM. They also have a nice little click when you press them. Powering things up here, we can see that the coin door lights up. The volcano buttons light up as well, and they're a very vibrant and deep red. The instructions and the missions on the upper part of the control panel light up as well. They're extremely detailed and clear. I was unable to find any blur in them whatsoever. Spinning it around here and checking out the back, we've got a volume control dial, a USB connector for charging, and a rocker switch to power it on and off. In the last one, I noted that it was a shame that these didn't come with an HDMI output and a controller input. But for this one, I don't think it would benefit the cabinet given the nuances of the controller and the vector graphics. Panning up, you'll notice that we have a nice little placard on the back that notes that it was engineered by Numskull Designs and manufactured by Rubber Road Limited. Aside from the screws holding everything together, there's no metal on the cabinets and everything's molded plastic and wood. Taking a look at the side art here, you can tell that at least Atari took their side art seriously. It's been painstakingly recreated here. The only thing that kind of takes me out of it for a second here is the legal stuff that they have to put on the bottom of the cabinet. I understand why it's done here, but if we're looking for 100% authenticity, this is one of those things that kind of knocks it. Again, I understand why they have to do it, but it would be nice if they didn't have to, so it would be 100% accurate. Anyway, I got up real close and even put the cheaters on, and I could see no blur whatsoever in the artwork here. Heading back to the front and getting up close and personal with the marquee here, you can see it looks great from all angles. Any blur that you're seeing here is from my camera and my shoddy camera work. There's no hot spots, no blur, no washout. Doing a quick close-up of the plastic coin door here, it looks very accurate in its recreation according to all the research that I've done here. Alrighty, let's check out some gameplay. The boot-up sequence is pretty standard for a quarter arcade. We get the quarter arcade splash screen, then we get to the arcade ROM. It's worth noting that there's no dip switches here. The original game did not contain any. To add those credits, we just need to press one of the buttons on the coin door here. As you can hear, I went a little nuts. I didn't bother choosing a mission, because I already know that I suck at this game. As I said, I suck. So as I noted multiple times, I was concerned about how this would look next to my other machines. So I decided to pop them on the bar and fire them up and see how they look next to one another. I was honestly impressed with how cool everything looked when the room was dark. It really shows how well they do the marquees. I decided to throw a little bit more light into the room to give it that barely lit arcade look. Looking at the three cabinets all together, I think they look great. Despite Lunar Lander being an inch taller, it doesn't look out of place, which put my biggest concern to rest. Alrighty folks, now it's time for everybody's favorite game show, Void My Warranty. To do that, all we need to do is pull the 4 screws on the back. Then using my 2mm standard screwdriver, I'm able to give the back a little bit of a wiggle and we can gently open it. Taking a look inside, we have a rechargeable battery. We also have the circuit board that contains the charging port, rocker switch, and the volume control. This was the part, though, that I really wanted to get a look at. The way the thruster worked. My apologies here on how the focus goes in and out. Unfortunately, the autofocus just kind of got lost and wasn't sure what the proper focal point was. Anyway, the dual action spring thing here is pretty cool. When moving it back and forth, you can really see the tension increase and decrease. I think how they did this was pretty amazing. I do have concerns that the springs may wear out over time, but maybe I'm just kind of overthinking things. Checking out the rest of the internals here, we see the screen and the PCB. After putting it back together, I put it on the sill with BurgerTime and Qix. Again, looking at everything side by side here, my concerns about it being too big are at ease. If there are any knocks on the machine, there's 3 of them. The first has to do with the vector recreation. And honestly, it goes for any machine that is trying to recreate the vector experience on an LCD. It's just not bright enough, and that's a limitation of what's available. If you don't believe me, head over to your local arcade and check out Asteroids. I give Asteroids as an example because quite frankly, there's a lot more of them out there. After you play it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There's just something about that streaky, overly bright, slightly halo effect that you get from a vector screen that you're never going to get from an LCD. The second thing is the sound. To me, it's just not loud enough. And again, I've never been able to experience one of these in person, so I don't know if how quiet it is actually accurate. Either way, even cranking it up all the way to 11, so to speak, it just was not loud enough. The third issue, again, is that MSRP. These are pricey, but given the licensing fees, the fact that they're a small company, and these are painstakingly recreated, it's up to you as to whether or not the price is justified. As I've said numerous times, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. I just put these videos together so you can take a look at my experience and make an educated decision as to whether or not this is right for you, even if this time it was given to me for purposes of review. Before I go, I want to mention 2 documentaries that were extremely helpful to me in my research for the history portion of this video. The first one was In the Shadow of the Moon, which was released in 2007. The other was For All Mankind, which was released in 1987. If you're interested in either one of them, Amazon links are in the sources section in the description below. As my subscribers know, I'm a huge fan of owning physical media. When you own it, they can't take it away from you. But if physical media isn't your thing, you may be able to find them on your favorite streaming app or even online. Either way, they're well worth the watch if you're interested in the Apollo space program. Well, that's it for this one, folks. If you're watching on your phone, if you wouldn't mind, give me a swipe and a hype. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Please let me know why. Subscribe and give me another shot. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover, please let me know. If there's anything you'd like me to change or think I could do better, again, please let me know. If you hung out to the end, thank you for sticking around. I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And as always, stay safe, be well, and take care.